Welcome to another episode of the Peak Potential Success Show. My name is Fong. I'm an entrepreneur, business strategist, real estate investor, speaker, and also best-selling author. And every single day, I help others unlock potentials and guide them to succeed. Today on the show, I have another amazing individual. And I was just so fortunate and so honored to be able to share a virtual stage with him recently. And when I heard him speak, I was absolutely blown away. His storytelling was amazing. Within that storytelling, a lot of great lessons learned that you can apply to your life. And I just couldn't wait to have him on my show. And I'm very excited to have him here today. He is the former #1 expert in the world when it comes to cosmetic dermatologists. And when it comes to that kind of stuff, he's also published over 17 books, over 30 different academic papers, and co-author with some amazing people, Jack Canfield, Corey Poirier, Harry Tinka, amongst many others as well. He is the founder of the Canadian Skin Cancer Association, won many different awards. He also hosted the #1 radio show, and also currently is a syndicated international radio show as well. Nowadays, he loves being able to share with his audiences and his clients the secrets to living a fantastic life with the 13 golden pearls of wisdom, which I'm sure he's going to drop a few later as well. I'm very excited about that. So please welcome a transformational sought-after TEDx speaker, a 3-time best-selling author, the expert in living a fantastic life and turning points, featured on CBC, Global, CTV, lots of great media outlets, a thought leader, winner of the Quilly Award, and also a life-changing coach and mentor, Dr. Alan Stephen Lycka.
Well, thank you, Fong. This is really a privilege to be on your show. All I can say is when you read that obituary, the rumors of my death are greatly exaggerated.
Well, thank you very much for being here. I know your time is very valuable, and I just couldn't wait to have you here. So thank you very much for your time. But just to kick things off, you have an amazing history. You have amazing life experiences. Can you share with us your journey, a Cold Notes version of how you got to where you are
in
today?
addition to doing all those things you talked about, my life changed in 2003, and it changed suddenly. I was walking with my dear wife and my youngest daughter in Disneyland, the happiest place on earth, when my wife turned to me and she said, "What's wrong with you, hon?" You know, I was taken aback, Fong. For once in my life, I hadn't said anything wrong. I hadn't done anything wrong. I hadn't even thunk anything wrong. But she persisted. "What's wrong with you? What's wrong with you?" I said, "Dear, I don't think there's anything wrong with you." She said, "Listen to your foot." I turned to her and I said, "That's the funniest thing you've ever said. What do you mean?" She said, "Well, listen to it." Well, my right foot had suddenly and mysteriously developed a right foot drop. With each step, my right foot was slapping on the pavement. You know, Fong, your brain is designed that when you're walking, your feet lift up. They don't flop on the pavement. Well, mine was flapping on the pavement. My wife said, "Did you have a stroke?" I said, "Dear, you're a doctor. I'm a doctor. If I had a stroke, I'd probably be lying on the pavement, muttering something unintelligible." And so, but she said, "You know, dear, I'm concerned." She said, "When we get back, you better get this checked out." Now, Fong, when your significant other tells you to get something checked out, what do?
You get it checked out.
You better. So I saw dozens of doctors, you know, and they did every test known to man. They did EMGs, they did lumbar punctures, they did brain scans, they did CAT scans, they did scans. And you know what they showed at the end of the day?
Not much.
They showed absolutely nothing.
Wow.
The doctors were flabbergasted. They thought I had a brain tumor, or they thought I had a slipped disc or something they could name it on. But you know, because they couldn't find anything, doctors always do one thing when they can't find something. You know what they do?
Nope.
They do more tests and more tests and more tests. And I think they even invented tests just to do tests back then because they couldn't figure it out. And, you know, at the end of all those tests, there still was nothing. So they sent me to a world-leading neurologist. You know, a neurologist is the brain guy. He's the guy that's supposed to have all the answers to all these complex pictures. So they sent me to the #1 guy in the city, and I went to see him. And I walked in and I said, "Hi." He said, high back, you better be sitting down when I tell you this. I said, why? I've got a dropped right foot. He said, no, you don't. You have ALS, Lou Gehrig's disease. Get your affairs in order. In 6 months, you're going to be dead. Fong, I was taken aback by that. I mean, I was flabbergasted. I said, is there a way to prove this diagnosis? He said, of course, on autopsy. Well, I shot back. I'm not going to die to prove you wrong. Okay. And I left that office. I slammed the door. I yelled and hollered and screamed. But when you go through something like this, Fong, you go through the phases of death and dying that Elizabeth Kubler-Ross wrote in a book called Death and Dying. You go through anger. You literally are angry at the world. I was angry at my wife. I was angry at my children. I was angry at my patients. I literally was angry all the time. Everybody knew that I was angry, but I couldn't tell them what was wrong. Otherwise, they wouldn't believe in me anymore. So then you go through bargaining. Bargaining is, oh God, please don't let this happen. I'll do anything if you don't let this happen. But I didn't think he was listening, at least not then. You go through denial. And denial, I'm not talking about the river in Egypt. I'm talking about denial. You deny that anything's wrong. So I'd work 12, 14 hours a day. I'd keep on plowing ahead. I'd go to conferences. I'd teach people. I'd do things. But, my right hand started not working right in addition to my right foot. And I was a talented doctor. So I became left-handed. I became a left-handed surgeon. Now that was a challenge because there weren't even the tools for left-handed doctors back then. For a doctor to cut things, they need scissors. Well, there weren't left-handed scissors for surgeons back then. There weren't things to do with it. So I had to develop them and invent them. So that was another challenge going along the way. So I was able to succeed. But then, Fong, you go through depression. Have you ever gone through depression?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, well, this was black. I mean, this was really black because I didn't have any hope anymore, because my future was bleak. I went through this darn terrible phase of depression. That's where you can't sleep. That's where you can't eat. That's where life has no meaning. I mean, what gives us meaning, Fong, is the fact that you're pursuing something. Every day as an entrepreneur, you're doing stuff that's making it happen. You're chasing the rabbit. You're doing stuff that's making it happen. But for me, there wasn't that anymore. How could I do stuff if I was going to be dead in 6 months? So I had a plan. I said, if I'm going to die with ALS, I'm going to end it all. I'm going to kill myself. But before I did that, I went to my wife and said, dear, I'm really bleak. I'm down. I said, I don't know what I have. She said, I know you don't know what you have. I don't know what you have either, but you're smart. You can figure it out. I said, I just saw hundreds of doctors and they couldn't figure it out. She said, you're smarter than them. You can do it. And back in 2003, something brand new was invented. You might have heard of it. It's called the internet. You ever hear of that beast?
Occasionally.
Yeah, I think it was invented by Al Gore or something like that, But the point is, it was so new back then. You had to get on by dial-on connections. You put your phone on a cradle and it would interact with another phone. It would go ria, ria, ria for like 15 minutes and finally connect. And then you had to communicate by a keyboard with primitive instructions. I mean, our computers had no memories back then. So you literally had to use a language like DOS or some language like that, where you had commands. Now, the internet is a wonderful place, but it's like the world's best library filled of garbage cans. And you can't tell the garbage cans from the great resources like the books behind me here. You just literally can't.
Yeah.
So you have to have somebody help you. And thank goodness I had friends that were nerds. And they helped me find a doctor in Colorado Springs, Colorado, by the name of David Martz. Now, David was a hematologist, a blood doctor, who had a story very similar to mine, except he got worse much more rapidly. And within weeks, he was on his deathbed. Now, he was such a well-known doctor and so beloved. People from around the world were coming to say goodbye to him. And a doctor came up from Texas and he looked at David and he said, David, I don't think you have ALS. I don't think you have Lou Gehrig's disease. David whispered, because that's all he could do at that time, what do I have? Well, the doctor from Texas, I think you have chronic Lyme's disease. I think you were bitten by a tick. And that tick has left a disease inside your body that mimics ALS. And therefore, I can treat it. David said, what do I have to lose? I'm dying. So we started him on antibiotics. And like Lazarus, David arose from the dead. Within 2 weeks, he was back to normal.
Wow.
So I knew I had to get in touch with David. So I phoned every hospital in Colorado Springs, Colorado, and I met up with him at the Methodist Hospital. And we talked for hours. And David said, can you come down to see me? I said, when? He said, why not right now? I said, David, it's Thanksgiving in Canada. We have a different Thanksgiving than you guys in the States. He said, well, aren't there any planes in Canada? He said, yeah. Get your ass down here. So I went to my wife and I said to my wife, dear, I'm not going to be here for Thanksgiving. She said, why? You always seem to be away. You always seem to be working. You know, it's Thanksgiving. I said, dear, there's a doctor in Colorado Springs that claims he can help me. My wife did a 180-degree turn. She said, what are you waiting for? I'll pack your bags for you. I'll drive you to the airport. Isn't that so true of your loved ones? Sometimes, David, they do Fong, they do a 180-degree turn on you.
You should have started off with that, eh?
Yeah, that's right. I should have started off with that because then it would have been okay, but it was crazy. But then I got to the airport. I flew from Edmonton to Denver, which was beautiful, one of the best flights. But then I got on a flight from Denver to Colorado Springs. It was a rinky-dink puddle jumper. Have you ever been on a rinky-dink puddle jumper?
I've been on some that's kind of questionable.
Yeah, well, this one, you know, the problem with the flight at the end of the day in Denver is the air comes off the desert and it causes eddies, which causes turbulence. Mm-hmm. What happens then is a plane will be flying around and all of a sudden it'll drop 100 feet without warning. Then it'll climb back up, then it'll drop another 200 feet. So that 15-minute flight is the flight from hell. It basically leaves your stomach in your throat and you're just terribly green at the end of the flight. Thank goodness it's only 15 minutes long. I crawled off the plane at the end of it. And there I was there. I got off the plane onto the tarmac and there was David to meet me. You know, this was way back in the early 2000s. They hadn't put in all the high security precautions back then. And he was able to just drive up and meet me. So it was great. We talked for hours and David said some magic words. He said, Dr. Lycka, I think history is repeating itself. And so he started me on treatment. And that's why I'm still here 20 years later and able to do this. Mm-hmm. But you know, David, when your life goes through this, you start to wonder about what life is all about. You really wonder whether you've done the right things. You really wonder if you've had meaning. Do you really, you know, did you do the things that were important to life to really make it matter? Mm-hmm. And I think that's what people have to do in their everyday, Fong, whether they're a business person, whether they're a person working in construction, whether they're a security guard. They really have to think about how they're making their life matter on a daily basis. Because at the end of the day, you want to be proud. You want to have something to show for it. You want to have a legacy that you pass on to others. You have to do it with vision. You have to do it mindset. You have to do it with tenacity. All the things that you should bring every day on. Otherwise, your life will not matter and will not make a difference. And this is what I'd like to impart to your listeners today, that it all takes about the right perspective. It all takes about living and loving and doing the things that are so important to you that are going to make a difference.
Well, absolutely amazing, and I'm very, very glad that you found the internet. I'm very, very glad that you met up with that doctor and you're here with us today. There's a few things that you mentioned during that story and that history of yours that really stuck out, and that is how you went through that very down period of being angry at everything, and then also going through doctor after doctor after doctor. Now, there comes a time where lots of people, you know what, I go through one or two people and I give up. So what kind of went through your mind of saying, you know what, I can't give up, I have to keep on going? And then two, how did you go against all that negativity that was in your mind in order for you to still succeed and finding that answer?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, Fong. And I don't know if any of us has an answer as to how we can keep on going when we're through despair. But I think every one of us has a thing inside of ourselves that keeps on driving us. Fong, have you ever gone through failure in your life? Have you ever gone through a period in your life that you invested in something and it did not work out the way you thought it was, that you've lost money, that you've been down and out and really driven down by life?
Well, yeah, of course, all the time.
Okay, that's what life is about. I mean, it's in the depths of despair that we have our greatest hopes. It's when we are being kicked in the teeth that we really have something to really strive for. And if you have to dig down, deep down inside yourself, you have to dig down into that tenacity that I'm talking about. You have to dig down and say there's meaning. When I was looking for something, I said, yeah, okay, I might have ALS, but what if they're wrong? I owe it to myself to find a better answer. Not everybody's right in medicine. Not everybody has a right thing. It's the same thing in business. You make a plan and then the plan kicks you in the teeth. Well, guess what? You make another plan.
Yeah.
You literally find another way to do it. I mean, if there's a wall, you find a way to go over it. You find a way to go through it. You find a way to go under it. So literally, you just keep on going. And all it does is take baby steps. It doesn't take doing the whole thing all at once. Doing baby steps is all that matters. Little steps along the way are really what it takes. And perseverance. Henry Ford once said, when he was being kicked in the teeth, he said, people are going to make more cars, but I can make a better car faster than they can. And look how many cars have stopped being made along the way. There was Chrysler, a huge corporation that built this huge building in New York. Do you see any more Chryslers anymore? Do you see any more Pontiacs anymore? Do you see any, how many automobiles have bit the dust along the way? And then look at Edison, who was inventing the light bulb. Okay, now we have much better light bulbs than what he invented. But when he would make a light bulb and fail, he would say, there's another one that didn't work.
Yeah.
There's another one that didn't work. There's another one that didn't work. I didn't fail. I just found another thing that wasn't successful.
Yeah.
And that's how we have to approach all this. When I was looking, I said, maybe medical knowledge isn't complete. Maybe we don't have all the answers. And as a doctor, I know how incomplete it is. When I look at a patient, a doctor always has what's called a differential diagnosis. That means the top guesses in your mind what their symptoms are. So in other words, it's either this, or this. And, sometimes it's actually zebras rather than horses. Maybe zebras exist out there rather than horses. Usually they say if you hear hoofbeats, think of horses. Well, it's not always that way. You have to keep in mind that it could be something totally different.
Mhm.
And that's where the true breakthroughs in life come, is when you keep thinking and keep doing it. And I encourage your listeners to, when they have a problem, look at it from all perspectives. Look at it from many perspectives. There's an old story of 4 wise men examining an elephant. And one examines the trunk and they say, this is what an elephant is. It's the trunk. Another one examines the foot and says, this is what an elephant was. Another one sits on the elephant and says, no, this is what the elephant is like. And finally, one examines the tail and says, this is what, but guess what? It's the sum total of all those.
Yep.
It's not any one of those that'll do it. So when you have a problem, look at things from a lot of perspectives. Look at it from the eyes of a child. And how would a child solve a problem? You know, it'll be totally different than you or I, Fong. They will think of ways of solving that problem that are so unique that it will astound your mind, okay? Think of how a teacher will solve it, you know? Think of how one of your teachers would solve it, Fong. Think of how one of your best friends would solve it. And then think of how one of your enemies would solve it.
Well,
because look at all the different things that would come from those perspectives and all those things. And I encourage you to write them all down and have all of them together for you, because that will give you a way into things. But also think of the vision, think of the mindset, and think of the tenacity that's necessary to drive all this.
Well, now you talked about the tenacity, the mindset. With all that, we still need to have that positivity, that motivation to keep on being positive and seeing the good things that's there so that we can keep on going.
You know, I think every day, Fong, you got to think of all the good things you have. You know, every day when you wake up, you should be grateful for the fact that you're alive today and can make a difference. Every day you should be grateful for the things that you're given. Every day you should look at things in such a way that as long as you're here, there's still hope. And do 3 little baby steps to get towards your goal. No matter how stupid or crazy your goal is, if you take 3 baby steps to get there, guess what? That's another 3 steps you're towards your goal. At the end of a month, that's 90 steps to get there.
Wow.
At the end of a year, that's like 1,000 steps to get there. Think how closer you are to your goals at the end of that. Now you have to have the belief that you're going to make a success. I mean, really, how do you prove that? By taking those baby steps.
Right.
You know, that's how you prove it to yourself that there is success along the way. By taking a baby step, there's less chance of failing.
Right.
There's less chance of falling. So it's very easy to get to your goal if you're taking baby steps.
You mentioned it doesn't matter how stupid those goals are. What would you say is one of the most stupidest goals that you've come up with for yourself?
You know, when I was a young man, I said I was going to go into medicine, okay? I came from a very poor background. My parents didn't have money. They didn't have resources. They didn't have the things that would require a person. You know, going into medicine's a very expensive pursuit for people. I mentioned it to my cousin and he laughed at me. He said, what are you going to do? Rob a bank? He said, how are you going to ever afford that? I said, you know, I'm going to make a plan. I'm going to make it happen. Well, I worked hard. I got scholarships.
Oh.
Every summer I worked. I was able to put money away towards it. I was able to get into medical school. Then I wanted to go and become a dermatologist. Now, there's very few dermatology schools in the world, okay? So you had to have a plan to get in. I wasn't the top of my class, so again, I had to find a way to get in. Now, I figured anybody that wanted a student in dermatology would love people who would help them write papers. So I wrote a lot of papers when I was in my undergraduate degrees. And so I got accepted into a lot of great schools just because I had the skills that they wanted from a person to help them.
Well,
So by looking at what other people want, you can often figure out how to make a plan for it. So I went to the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is one of the top 10 dermatology schools in the world. And I excelled, and it was a great thing because the American schools were so much farther ahead than the Canadian schools then. I was able to learn lasers. I was able to learn surgery. I was able to learn things like liposuction. I was able to do things that our Canadian schools only brought in 30 years later. So it was like a godsend that I was able to the United States to learn this stuff. And it's true of a lot of things. Remember, in many things, there are ideas that exist outside of things. And when I was at the University of Minnesota, my chairman, Peter Lynch, did me the greatest favor. At the first lecture he ever gave us, he drew 4 interlocking boxes on a blackboard. Now, many people haven't heard of blackboard, so let's say whiteboard or green board for them. So what he did, the first box, he said, this is the knowledge that you're going to get in your residency in this training. Then he said, this is the knowledge you're going to get out of textbooks, in a box that was outside of that. And then he drew a box bigger than that. He said, this is the box that you're going to get by learning in other seminars and so on. And then he said, think of the size of this room, think of the size of this universe. This is the knowledge you're actually going to need to survive in this world, because that's true of life, Fong. How much knowledge do we have now that are at fingertips from the internet, from everything? Think of the knowledge we have right now and how our world has shrunk because of the knowledge that's there. Think of the knowledge we had of the people on that stage that were presenting and how amazing they were and how guided they were and how much brilliance was there that our friend Mitch Kamidja put together. You know, it's amazing how much knowledge there is and how people can get that at their fingertips now.
That's absolutely true, and I was very fortunate to be there too, to reap in the benefits of listening to all these experts and learn from you as well. When you talked about being a doctor, it's not very common that doctors move on to entrepreneurship and then have a radio show and then write books and then go and speak on TEDx and all that kind of stuff. Has that entrepreneurial spirit always been kind of inside of you?
You know, that's a great question, and I'm not sure. Certainly, I think entrepreneurship can be encouraged and so on. When I started in medicine, one of the things that happened in medicine way back in the early 1990s is medicine changed. And we had a premier in our province called Ralph Klein, who decided to kill healthcare and decided that he wasn't going to pay for things like like they were before. So I decided to shift to cosmetic surgery back then. No one was doing it. It was a brand new field. I mean, we had very few tools back then and everything else. But I said, hey, this is probably where the puck's going to be in the future. So just like Wayne Gretzky says, it's not where the puck is, it's where the puck's going to be. So I figured that if I went down that path, I'd learn it. So I said, how am I going to learn to the business of cosmetic surgery? So I was at Staples bookstore and I picked up a little book by a man by the name of Dan Kennedy. Have you ever heard of Dan Kennedy? Yeah, he's also known as the Millionaire Maker, and he's written thousands of books on things. And in that book was a little thing that if you're having problems, write me a question and I'll answer that. So I wrote him stuff and he wrote back saying, this is the answer to your question. But he said, I'm starting something called the Mastermind Club. Have you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, mastermind clubs are done in business all the time and people are doing them, but it's not something that's done very commonly. So it's something that we started. And as a result of that, I was able to do some great things and get along the path. I was able to learn from other entrepreneurs. And so I was able to learn the skills of being an entrepreneur and really make it happen.
Mm-hmm. And does that give you a big advantage in the medical field as well?
Oh, for sure. All business is interfacing, and it's all wonderful, but you need to really have people that'll you need a way of looking at things, and entrepreneurial is just another way of looking at things.
Mm-hmm. Right. Now, when it comes to your entrepreneurial time and doing all these, what do you call it, these radio shows and whatnot, was the speaking portion of that something that you've always been able to do, or did you spend more time on your speaking side too?
I've found that when I was a cosmetic surgeon, I was able to speak on stages around the world, and so it was wonderful. So I used those skills then to use those in other fields. They were skills that I was able to transpollinate.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you speak on a topic like liposuction or Botox or how to build a business in cosmetic surgery, guess what? It's not much different than speaking about the topics we're talking about right now.
That's true. Back to what you're doing now. You're sharing a lot of great life lessons. You're sharing a lot of great wisdom with your audiences and your clientele. And one thing that you're an expert in right now is how to live that fantastic life. So share with us, what is a fantastic life?
It's a wonderful question. And every time I do my show, my syndicated radio show, I ask my guests, how do you live a fantastic life? And I also ask them a second question is, how do you recommend others live a fantastic life? So the answer to that is as unique as the individuals that are on it. It is amazing to see the different perspectives, but then it's also wonderful to see the commonalities in all that. Part of living a fantastic life is to be in control of your destiny and really take full responsibility for your life at all phases of it. Without taking responsibility, you will never live a fantastic life. A second thing that makes a fantastic life is that you should be grateful for everything you have. Okay, Fong, even the poorest person in Canada has so much more than some of the richest people in other countries. It's unreal.
Yeah.
It is so amazing what we have in our society as part of freedoms and culture and the wonderful things that we are given. And I think just being grateful for that. Another thing a person should do is every day they should do something that's selfless. They should do something to help others along the way. It could be as simple as being on a show like this and sharing your knowledge with somebody, because that's how you help people and help them grow. Another thing you should do is something you should do every day is to do something that is a little bit selfish. Do something for yourself every day to make you feel happy. So if you like music, listen to some music. If you like certain foods, well, have some of those certain foods. If you do something that you will be happy for at the end of the day and make it happen. Now, another thing everybody should do is every day they should do something that make them sweat. They should do some exercise. I think that's something that people forget along the way, that they need to really take into account that, over the years, mankind used to be field workers. We all used to work 10 or 12 hours a day in the field doing stuff. Now we work at computers all the time. And so part of every day should be some physical exercise, something to help us so that when we get to be 90 or 100, we still have a body left as a result of that. Another thing is you should work on is your spouse and your community and the people that around you love. Because if you don't, you're not really doing something that's important. Right. You really should do something with those people. If you don't build a relationship with your spouse, you're not going to have a spouse for a long time. You're going to grow apart and you're not going to have the same goals or values. So it's important. If you have children, make sure you spend time with your children. I've been blessed with having 4 wonderful children and 7 wonderful grandchildren. So it's wonderful that I have the family I do and the support that I do to do the things I want to do. So it's a wonderful time in my life. I'm retired now, and I'm so busy now. I am doing shows all the time. I'm doing things. My syndicated radio show is going 12 times a week. Wow. And there's over 3 million listeners a month.
Wow, well, congratulations on all that. It's awesome.
Yeah, and all that started because of a book I wrote called The Secrets to Living a Fantastic Life. And of course, everybody wants the secrets to living a fantastic life. But if you listen to each of my guests, you will hear them and what makes their lives fantastic. You will hear what's unique about them. Like today, I had a pre-call with a wonderful lady who's going to be on my show in the near future, a lady that was originally from Latvia, and now she's living in Valencia, Spain. Now, when I caught her, she was on her sailboat having lunch, okay? Now, can you picture that lifestyle of choosing exactly what you want to do and how you want to do it, with whomever you want to do it, and where you want to do it? And that's all a potential for everybody. You have to just design what you want to do and make a way of getting there.
Now, is it during these interviews and also looking back at your own life that you've came up with the 13 golden pearls of success of life?
The 13 golden pearls came out about because I met a wonderful lady by the name of Harriet Tinka. And Harriet Tinka, I had a story similar to mine, but very different. Harriet applied for an award that I was giving at the YWCA called the Women of Distinction. And the Women of Distinction was given to women to honor them in society. We don't honor women enough, even in today's day and age. It's still a male-dominated society. So I sponsored that when I realized I hadn't given enough back to society. Well, Harriet applied for an award, and she wanted to take me for lunch and talk to me. So I said, of course, Harriet. Now, Harriet's story was different than mine, but very similar. She was an award-winning model, walking the catwalks of New York and doing those high-floating things, going to Milan, going to Paris, being in New York. And she grew tired of the industry because the industry is a dog-eat-dog industry. It really is a terrible industry for young people. She said she's going to pursue her other love, which was accounting. So she decided to go to the University of Calgary in Calgary, Alberta, and take accounting up. There she met an evil psychopath in her class who tried to kidnap her. He stabbed her and left her for dead. Now, Harriet didn't know how she recovered. She ended up in the hospital. But while there, she met a wonderful young lady by the name of Amber. Now, Amber was a unique girl in that she was wheeling down the hallways in a wheelchair. She was paralyzed from the waist down. She had been in a car accident and lost both of her parents. Now, she was happy as a lark, and she looked at Harriet and said, "What are you moping for? Use your story to empower others. So the reason why Harriet wanted to have lunch with me was to propose that we write a book together. And so we met together. And because we met together over and over and over again, we put together these 13 golden pearls. Now, do you know what forms a pearl, Fong?
Pressure.
Actually, it's not pressure. It's a little grain of sand that gets inside of the wall of an oyster. So it traumatizes it. And instead of getting beaten up or bruised or destroyed by that grain of sand, what the oyster does is wall it off with this really precious material called luster. Now, in the South Pacific, in Indonesia and Thailand, there actually are oysters that produce golden pearls. Now, these are so rare and so valuable, a single solitary golden pearl costs upwards of $10,000. So the golden pearls that we found are golden pearls inside of each of us.
Mhm.
And the golden pearls are ones that make everybody that much better and that much more wonderful. And all you have to do is look inside yourself to make those pearls what they are.
Mhm. Well, are there a few pearls that you could drop with us right now?
Here, I'm just going to pull up my book here and I'm going to read you a little story. Is that okay, Fong?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Now, my first golden pearl is the golden pearl of love. Now, this is a quote that I used to start it. Love. I believe that dreaming is stronger than reality. Desire is more potent than apathy. Hope is more powerful than despair. Joy always triumphs over sorrow. Laughter is the ultimate cure for mankind's foibles. And I believe that love is stronger than hate. And it's the greatest gift of all.
Wow.
So here's the story. Every chapter in this book, every pearl has a little story in it to take the meaning into it. Now, there once was a 3-year-old girl who was extremely happy. She was angelic. She had red curly hair. She was always singing and playing. She never walked. She always skipped everywhere she went. The world was her oyster. From sunup to sundown, everyone who saw her had a smile on their face. One day, her father punished the 3-year-old girl for wasting a roll of gold wrapping paper. You see, money was tight, and he became infuriated when the child decorated what he thought was an empty shoebox to put under the Christmas tree. Nevertheless, the little girl brought the gift to her father on Christmas Day and said, "This is for you, Daddy." The man even became more infuriated when he opened it and found it was empty. He said, "Don't you know that when you give somebody a present, there's supposed to be something inside?" The little girl said, "Oh, Daddy, you're so silly. It's not empty. I blew kisses into the shoebox.
Oh.
They're all for you." Now, the father was crushed. He put his arms around his little girl and begged for forgiveness. Only a short time later, a tragic car accident took the life of the little girl. Her father kept the gold-wrapped shoebox by his bed for many years, and whenever he was discouraged, he would take out an imaginary kiss and remember the love of the child who had put it in there. And when he closed his eyes, he could see the little girl. He could even hear her giggle and feel her on his lap. He actually felt her kisses in his mind. She was there. Many years later, the man died of a broken heart. He went up to the pearly gates, and there was St. Peter to meet him. He said, "To enter, you must give me something very valuable. I can't let you in without it." The old man gave St. Peter the golden box. St. Peter said, "Enter, this is for you. You can have the keys to the kingdom." Inside, he met his little girl. The old man said, "I missed you." The girl said, "Why? I never left you. When I died, God made me into an angel. When you opened the shoebox, I gave you a kiss. I giggled in your ear. I sat on your lap. I will always be with you. I am your little girl. That is from an anonymous author. So that is the stories I tell you about golden pearls. So this is what I'd like you to take away in your life, Fong. I'd like you to always remember that it's not always about chasing wealth and entrepreneurship and all those things. Mm-hmm. Remember, at the end of the day, it's about giving back. It's about the important things that you build along the way, the friendships you make, the people that you meet, and the people that you help along the way. Those are the things that are going to carry you through when things are tough.
Well, that's awesome. That story was amazing, and it really touched me right here. So thank you very much for that. Our hour just went by very, very quickly, and there was already a lot of great stuff that you shared. And I know I could talk to you for probably many more hours, but I know your time is valuable. And I have 5 quick questions for you to wrap everything up. Just give me the first thing that comes to mind.
Right. You know, I think it's just a pleasure to be here today, Fong, and it's really a pleasure to help your audience. If I can help just one of them, that's what I'd love to do. And if anybody would like my help further, check me out on my website, Dr. Alan Lycka, that's DRALLEN, Lycka, LYCKA.com. Mm-hmm. And look at what I can help for you. And check out some of my syndicated radio shows there. I think you'll love them as well.
Mm-hmm. Will do for sure. So yeah, quick 5 rapid fire questions for you. First question, what is your sweet tooth? Something that you've always wanted to eat?
You know, I love sweet things. Unfortunately, you know, like this morning I had a donut, you know, but I try to limit the amount that I eat. So I'd encourage people that if they have a sweet tooth like I do, everything in moderation. Don't go crazy about it. And I do love Coca-Cola.
If you were to win the gold medal in any sport, what would that be?
You know, I'm not sure if I would ever win a gold medal in any sport, but you know, I would love to be a hockey player and put the winning goal in the most important game in the world.
If somebody surprising shows up to your door and you were inspired to serve this person dinner, what's your specialty that you could provide?
You know, the biggest thing I love to make is I'm one of the best barbecue chefs in the world. Oh, wow. And I love making steaks, and steaks are something that I'm known for. You know, when my family and so on, when we have a family celebration, I'm the grill cook. So I really take over that and do the reins for that. So steak is something that I love to make.
Oh, wow. If you're #1 in the world, where's that book on that?
Yes, well, you know, I haven't written that yet. That's probably going to be my number 40th book.
Awesome. Is there a hidden talent that not many people know about?
You know, I love to do photography. And so one of the things that I do in my spare time is photography. I really am pleased at the way the iPhones come along, because anybody can be a great photographer in this day and age.
And
I just wish it has more megapixels so that it can do something that's even bigger than what it is now.
And my last question is, before I get to that, give me a number from 1 to 5.
5.
1, 2. So how is success similar to an accordion?
You know, I think accordions go on and off and up and down, and you have to really squeeze out the notes that are there. So success is a bit like an accordion for sure.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for that. That is how success is like an accordion. Once again, the honor is all mine. Thank you very much for being here. Your time was very, very valuable, and I learned so much from your stories. I'll let you have the last word. Anything else you wanted to share?
You know, again, everybody, just remember some of the pearls that I told you about today. If you need some more help, make sure you reach out for it. Reach out to Fong, reach out to myself. My website is www.drallen Lycka, Lycka.com. Love to help you. If you'd like to write me, it's Allen, ALLEN, at Dr. Allen Lycka. That's DRALLEN, Lycka, Lycka.com. Love to help you.
Awesome. Thank you very much. For everybody out there, make sure you connect with Dr. Allen here and check out all his stuff. Great content, lots of great stories, lots of great lessons learned, something that for sure will enhance all of our lives. So once again, thank you very much. My name is Fong. He is Dr. Allen. Until next time, today is the day to lock your peak potential. We'll all see you later.